Hear the wind in the background. Good evening, one and all. Good evening, and welcome to another Sunday at the round table. There's so much to talk about, much. As my friend Ratigan said, Jamaica is a content-rich place. A lot, there's never a shortage of topic to discuss in the Jamaican space. And this Sunday, we're going to sort of zero in on a couple, a few topics that we want to address coming out of the news. The first one, of course, is Holness, Prime Minister Holness. He made a statement, and as Jamaican people say, just kick up round bus, because everybody had talk about it. Social media and crackdown and what have you. And we're going to look into that further, right? We also want to talk about reform. And with us today, we have a representative from National Integrity Action, an organization that focus on integrity, integrity in the Jamaican space. This organization was started by Trevor Monroe, among others. He's no longer with the organization, and it is now headed by Daniel Archer, a sister who, I should tell me, oh, I talk a lot. I Waterhouse, I know Waterhouse and what time. So he's not one of those sisters who spend her time in the office. She amongst the master, she amongst the masters and people and what happened. Sister Daniel Archer, welcome, my sister.
Blessings. Thank you for having me.
Yes. In addition to this history, we're going to be joined by Will Rattigan and Herb Nelson. There's some information that these brethren, intelligence officer and former FBI agent, they come in contact with information that make very interesting reading, as to what the level of corruption in Jamaica. Will and Herb will join us as we explore this journey with this history. Las is always with us. The brother man is based in Canada, but in always he's a regular panelist. So welcome Las and Patrick. Sister Daniel. Well, Danielle? Daniel.
Daniel is fine. Daniel.
Daniel.
Like Daniel in the Lions then.
Oh, well, that's the way to start because Daniel went into the Lions then. And
Daniel was tossed into the Lions then.
Okay. But him kind of cool it down. You have this name and you take up a mighty burden to carry in Jamaica, the one called corruption. Corruption. That's a heavy lifting you're doing in this history. So you want to share with us a little about your background and what you've been doing since you're now the director of the National Integrity Action?
Well, one of the things that NIA has been doing is looking more at how we can get the information to every Jamaican to understand and appreciate that they play a role in governance. I believe that I came on as principal director, having moved from being a member of the board at a, as they would say, at an opportune time. It's a monumental area and time because we were in the midst of what everyone has been talking about, constitutional reform. So the purpose of the engagements that NIA has been doing for the last couple of months is to really focus on what role will the new constitution play in reducing corruption as much as possible. How do we do that? We get the people involved. We ask for more accountability systems and ensure that people understand. For me, at this particular moment, gentlemen, the most important thing, you talk about wholeness and tracking and social media and all the things that have been said. It's a great time simply because we now have that opportunity to ask, do we have a parliamentary democracy, or do we have a constitutional democracy? And many people ask, huh? Because they don't understand the difference. Parliamentary democracies are where you can have a minister like Mr. Vaz who can say something and it becomes law. A constitutional democracy requires that what the prime minister or the minister says must be in keeping with the constitution. And that's what Jamaica has. We have a constitution that prevents prime ministers and ministers from making law just because they feel like. And the constitution allows us to make sure that the laws are fair and just and reasonable for everybody. So that's my task. My task at this moment is to ensure that the government and their agents operate within the constitution that we currently have, and to ensure that if we're talking about constitutional reform, accountability and transparency mechanisms are included, such as a recall for parliamentarians who do not do what they're supposed to do, are included when we have a constitution, our new constitution.
Yet you have a prime minister who has demonstrated that there's no ends that he will not go to retain power. This man have members of his party sign letters, and you see some other practices by this brethren that raise a lot of question. Tell me what it's like, in terms of that position and having to deal with the government official. You made
I
a
think
statement.
I think what happens, one of the things that is most important to NIA at this time, having done a poll in December of 2023, was the poll revealed that at least 58% of persons were fearful of being part of anything anti-corruption because they were fearful of being victimized. And we have seen those instances, I would say, where people have been caused to be fearful. When you can make a pronouncement and then because somebody puts up something on social media and you find them under the bed, you make them apologize. They are demonstrating and you say, well, we're going to record the demonstration and consider whether or not we are going to have charges for public mischief. These are all things that lead people to feel that they can't speak out. But the more we speak out is the more it is that it's helpful. And I think that's one of the things as Jamaicans we can do and should do. A good example this week is the speakers making an about turn with respect to the tabling of the Integrity Commission reports. Now that was something that was said would not happen, that they would send it to their own committee in Parliament and the people of Jamaica would never know. Now, on account of that, the uprising from the people speaking through civil service, through the civil society, the different agents, people talking on radio, people calling it out, the House Speaker had to recant. And having recanted, this week we got a note that says they are going to be tabled on Tuesday. So we have before us a great opportunity, just like how you have Waterhouse Vibes, which I think is fantastic that a community can come together to talk about issues that affect them using this medium, that we just have to become creative in how we respond to overreaching of the government, because they have been known to step back. I mean, they didn't step back with the salaries because there was not sufficient outcry, but we can now hold them to account because they are now being well paid. So when we talk about being well paid, we can now demand things such as an impeachment legislation as well as a code of conduct because they don't have a reason now not to perform.
And what about the prime
Um,
minister? Just a minute that. And what about the declaration of the prime minister? Is that
Well,
something your
yeah,
agency
we have spoken about that on several occasions. I think like the rest of Jamaica, we are on tenterhooks because we want to see what is in those reports as well. We understand that the Integrity Commission has laid reports just this week and that they should be tabled on Tuesday. So anxiously, just like every Jamaican, we await to hear what is to be done and what is to be said. And the NIA has previously commented on that. And that has been, I think it was repeated in the Gleaner last week and even before that. So it is of concern. But I think where we are now is we should wait to see what is in those reports so that we can make a better and fairer assessment of the situation at hand. Because we are all awaiting this report and we are curious enough to know whether this report will include or mention the statutory declarations, appreciating that the law does say that it is the Integrity Commission that should be making a comment about whether a public official has not been able to file their returns or not.
Last, you wanted to ask the sister some question. Go ahead.
No, I wanted to make a comment. It's interesting that Daniel mentioned the question of victimization, because I think that's a major concern with a lot of Jamaicans. And the statements by the Prime Minister this week about social media and what they're doing seems to be part of intimidate people and to stop them from talking out and calling for the kind of actions that will force the government to be more tolerant, right, and more upfront with the people, right? So I think that the whole question of the social media, the way the government presented it about tracking down people and all that kind of stuff, seems like a whole strategy of intimidation to frighten away the public outcry against anything that the government is doing that is not clear to the people.
You just that statement you want to make. Patrick,
Yeah,
Yeah,
just as a follow up to last's statement, and the social media issue. Daniel, I don't know if you have any particular response to the Prime Minister's attempt to intimidate people about what they say, what they might or might not say on social media, because this is, as far as I can see, is like a copycat practice, right? They've heard of the government in the US, for example, speaking a lot about social media and social media control of comments and so on. And they figure that, well, it's something they can pick up as well to really create a distraction from the corruption that's taking place. So I don't know if you want to speak particularly to that, because
Well, I think,
as far as the policing is concerned, it's just impractical.
well, perhaps it's there that I'll draw on my background as an attorney and do say that the question is going to be how is it going to be regulated and what the test is going to be, because we do have regulations now. We have a Cybersecurity Act which talks about how it is that you use cybersecurity, and there's a little known legislation which I had cause to find out about since I've heard all of this, called the Undesirable Publications Prohibition of Importation Material. I think that's what it's called. In the early 70s and 80s, this was used by the Jamaican government at the time to charge and prosecute persons who were found in possession of material that had, for instance, Malcolm X information that was touching and concerning the Black Power movement. We all know how that era ended or started. And I think this is just one of those areas where we are seeking to control information. I have grave concerns about that, and that is why I start off by saying that our constitution is very important to our survival. We don't have a parliamentary democracy. We have a constitutional democracy. So any regulation that you're going to dream of has to be a regulation that respects the fact that we have and we're guaranteed freedom of expression. Now, freedom of expression is not something where it says that you cannot say something because you don't like it. We have a defamation law. Defamation law is where you say something that is untrue or that has affected somebody's reputation that they can be prosecuted under. Jamaica has one of the, I dare say, it's one of the strongest defamation legislation that I've seen. And so, if it is that there is great fear by any member of the political class that things are said on social media in the very same way that you can now track them, you can now identify who they are and utilize the Defamation Act. There doesn't seem to me a reason for that. What I would say is that we do need to have something that sets a standard and allows people to know the difference between fake news and what is true. And for me, the conversation should not be around tracking individuals. The conversation should be perhaps a generation away, looking at how it is that we are going to regulate artificial information. That to me is the greatest threat that we have as we enter our next election. Elections are approximately 11 to 16 months away. The use of artificial intelligence to do campaigns. I mean, we're seeing what that is doing in the United States. Are you serious that we're going to be having a conversation about tracking social media bloggers when we could probably think about regulations that look at artificial intelligence? To my mind, as a legal person, the background for me is that you want to control the dialogue, but in doing so, a better approach would be to look at artificial information because we already have a defamation legislation where individuals can be prosecuted if it is that they say something that is not true or something that affects the reputation of any individual, whether you're a politician or not. And in fact, I will go further and say, under the Jamaican law for defamation, unfortunately, politicians get more money from defamation than a regular old Jamaican. So the law is quite in the direction of looking out for politicians. To my mind, that's where I'd be.
So let me see if I understand this. You're saying that I am a blogger in America, a citizen of America, exercising my First Amendment, exercising all of that, right? I'm shielded by the American laws. You're telling me that the Jamaican government can prosecute me, file something in the court down there and prosecute me for what I've
I
done?
use that for defamation. If it is that you have said, and it is the same for me, if I said something against you in the US that affected your reputation and caused you to lose money, that you can be sued for defamation. If you look at the legislation in the US, the libel laws are the very same thing and they have been used by many companies. The issue is whether or not what you said was true or whether or not it was done in the sense that there was malice or there was motive. And so there's a standard, there's a test. I don't think we need to be talking about being able to track you to tell people that we know who you are and we're going to make you apologize. That's very different from ensuring that people say what is true. To tell people that we're going to track you and we're going to sue you and make you apologize is, to my mind, happening and relying on the environment of victimization, which is preventing people from speaking even when it is that what they're saying is an expression of their opinion. I mean, that's why you find there are many vloggers and many people on social media that'll put up the thing that says, this is my personal page. These are my personal views. If it is that you're offended by it, leave my page. It's like coming into my house. Can't I say how I feel in my own house? If you decide to come right into my space and say something about anybody and them go bex, on my yard, I never publicize it. It's my page. I mean, I'm saying that to say that these are some of the things that we have to look at. And so the context in which those words were made and those statements were said one has to ask, what's the motive, considering that we do have a defamation law and it does appear to be politically inspired. And you made that point about where you are in the US. I want to point to you to a recent situation in Trinidad where a US blogger, I think he was US, but let's say a non-Trinidadian, went to Trinidad and did a video about gangs, and he was prosecuted under the Sedation Treason Act and was brought before the courts. He was given bail to go home to come back to answer the charge. But you see, where they found a law to capture what he was doing on his own blog to make sure that he pays some kind of price in the country. So different countries have different legislation that governs how it is that they are seen or how their citizens are
Daniel,
treated.
that,
So that's it.
I'm getting a wind sound in the background and some
Not
disruption.
me,
Can the windows, there's a window
but it might be Miss Beryl coming. Miss Beryl is just sending out her little children to tell you that she's on her way, but it's not me.
Listen, Ishmael, you have to take it from here. You're the one who introduced us to her and she to us. So
Good
take it
evening,
from here.
afternoon, everybody.
I
Afternoon.
feel guilty person now.
Yeah,
Yes, Mr. Douglas.
How are you? How are you, Miss
I'm
Asha?
well, thanks.
Thank you for attending. Really appreciate it. So so the 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 ethos of the conversation I want us to look at is um around our interpretation of the Constitution as it is, and what it means in relation to Jamaicans, whether on the island or abroad, as it relates to the new constitution that we're trying to form now. Um, I, I, I preface that because we are now in, I'd want to say we're in the stage of tabling it within Parliament, but we're far away from ending. However, the document that was tabled is wanting, and it's not just wanting on the side of the government. It's wanting in relation to our perception and our understanding of it. So my question to you is, what where do we go from here with that document?
All right, so the document that's been tabled apparently is the quote unquote findings or recommendations from the Constitutional Reform Committee that was specially selected to deal with the issue of constitutional reform. I would say there are three things to my mind that we need to do, and one would be the diaspora. To me, to my mind, the diaspora has to do much more than simply speak on the platforms that they have been having. They need to agitate. And when I say agitate, I mean we talk about the dependence on the diaspora. And this is my personal view because I'm trying to deal with the fact that we are reliant on the diaspora for remittances. We talk to the diaspora and we say, give us your investments, give us your money. And we then turn around to the diaspora and will say, you're not able to be part of the governance structure. I think it creates an opportunity for discussions with the diaspora and for them to literally take this issue and say, for years we have been asking for voting rights. Does this mean that I have to be present on the island for 12 months? Does it mean I must be paying property taxes? Does it mean that I'm supposed to have a business that is established? What does it mean? And here is where I differ from most persons. My vantage point of what the Constitution is, Ishmael, may not be the same as yours for this particular reason. I am not burdened by what other people have done. I am really not concerned about what the Canadian Constitution says or what the UK Constitution should be or what the United States Constitution has created itself to be. What I think is most important is that we as Jamaicans craft a living document that will govern how we interface with Jamaicans, whether they live on the island or off the island. And we are at liberty. We have the widest option to craft something that is very Jamaican. So we can open the doors for the diaspora to participate. And here is why it's important. We have circular migration. We have many Jamaicans who live here, but because they want to work in the US or they want to work in Canada, they have obtained permanent residency. Now, some may choose not to become citizens, while others, because of the job requirements or their own ambitions, become citizens. Now, in the global environment of 2024, if you are being futuristic, can we genuinely say a Jamaican is only somebody who is living on the rock at the time? I don't know. So that is why I say that we have to have the diaspora having meaningful conversations about what the future should look like with a Jamaica that has Jamaicans, has equal Jamaicans or more Jamaicans outside of Jamaica than on the rock. And the way our health system is, and the way our educational system is, and the way the employment opportunities are, me not gonna lie, more Jamaicans are going to leave. And what does this mean? I mean, when we talk about it, let's be reasonable. Corruption affects migration. The more corrupt we are, the more people are going to leave. The more people who leave, it is the best people who leave. No amount of telling people that the salaries are good enough for people to come and work. People are going to say, yeah, but the corruption's so high, I'm going to spend out half of that on security. And because the corruption is so high, the cost of living is equally high. So we have a problem. Corruption has ensured that migration will continue. It's not the only reason, but it is a factor that influences migration and migration of the best minds. These best minds may very well get the resources to come back so that they are not exposed to the impacts of corruption and decide that they want to work here. And impacts of corruption are not just salary wise, but impacts of corruption are the mere fact that they can't get the job that they'd like to get because they don't know anybody. And in Jamaica, nepotism is not a crime. In Jamaica, bribery is not a crime. So I can bribe somebody to get a job because we don't have a bribery act. Yes, drop off of your chair. I saw me did feel when we did here the first time. I realized, even as a lawyer of almost 20 years, that hold on, we don't have a bribery act. Are you kidding me? And that is why we don't. Nepotism is not a crime in Jamaica. Why we can fairly and properly say we can give the best jobs to our family and our friends. So migration is going to continue. So to me, it means one, the diaspora has to have a greater role to play and take on the responsibility to inspire those who are crafting. If you look at the CRC, CRC did not include anybody from the diaspora. And that to me tells us that we're not looking at all the elements that would influence a futuristic constitution. Secondly, public education, we understand and have to accept that is missions like Waterhouse Vibes that is going to educate people.
Yeah.
It's blogs like these that teach me how to talk to people. Having been in media, it was after a while that I realized that I really did sound lofty because I was thinking like a lawyer and talking like how I was trained. We are going to have to craft how we talk to people so they understand that being able to go around and shop, go buy one loaf of bread is impacted by corruption, and the government has something to do with it. Because government decide where you're going to put up your house, and the government decide what kind of law you're going to have. And the government. So the government is not there to give you the money to go to the shop, but it's the government that is going to ensure what your safety is like so you can thrive. These are things that we have to be able to speak to people about, and this is where public education comes in. So where we go from here, the document is tabled. And I would say that we can say to these parliamentarians, look here, you never want impeachment legislation and you don't want recall. And there is no bribery act. So since there's no rush to do any of those things, we, the people of Jamaica, want to be educated about it first. So we start off by having blogs like these. And this blog lead to another blog, and God forbid that they can track us and decide that they don't want to hear from us and lock us out. But assuming all things being equal, we use these blogs, we go to the communities. I come into Waterhouse, we sit down by the bar, we go by the shop, and we just talk and reason. This is where Jamaicans now have to get up and decide, say, my mission for the next 10 years have nothing to do with me and everything to do with the Jamaica that I wanted to have. And then the third thing is we have an election. So are we going to make how it is that the government has responded to the Constitution as something that is going to inspire or give us something that they have to work towards? And I guess we're going to have to grow up, because the truth is they can always give us this information on a manifesto, but they never implement it. How are we going to hold them accountable? Are we going to ask the private sector now to tell us who they're giving monies to and how much they're giving to, and have they tied that money to something? And if it is, what have they tied it to? Conversations for us to continue having on blogs like these. So I don't think we should accept that this document that has been laid is going to inspire the Constitution. I think we need to rise up as a people, whether through social media or otherwise, and demand greater information. And in all of this, be careful. Be very careful that we don't sit down and be quiet and have the government change everything to giving Parliament the powers to make laws, to enact laws, and to prosecute laws, because they have been able to change the Constitution in the dead of night when we weren't watching.
You're so much on point.
My sister, much of what you said is true. Okay, Mr. Rattigan is joining us. Much of what you said, my sister, is true. And we can lay it at the feet of the politician, as the corrupt fly in the ointment. But all of what I'm hearing is just reform. Patch this, patch that, amend the Constitution, do this, do that. But nobody is talking about fundamental change in Jamaican society. We can come up with a new constitution, yes, we can do that. But when it comes to distribution of power, distribution of power in the Jamaican society, nobody not talk about that.
Yep.
Yes, they want to adapt a constitution with the same set of people at the top and the worker and the peasant, the coach people at the bottom. They want to keep that and address it up here and there. So don't you think that's something we should be thinking about, especially the question of recall? How do we...
Yes.
Go ahead.
You see, one of the things I think we have a problem with is accepting that our politicians, and this goes right across the board, if it works for them, they will not be willing to make the change. If the system benefits them, if they're benefiting from the system, and we can interpret, we can use ourselves. If it is that I am benefiting from a system, do you think I am going to ask for change?
That makes sense.
Go ahead, Ishmael.
No, I'm saying that makes sense. Continue. That makes sense.
Yeah, we're not going to ask for change if it is that we're benefiting. So we can't expect those who are benefiting from the inequity in the system to demand change. Change has to come from the people themselves. And we have to get to that point where we say to ourselves, yeah, man, me afraid, but I know me want out a road. So when I stand up to speak, people will say to me, boy, you're fearless, see? And I say, yeah, because me have backative.
Yeah.
And me know me have backative. And if Ishmael stand up and talk, Ishmael know say him have backative. And when all else fail, we know say Rattigan now leave we a road. Him have a join we too. So when we start talk, a tree with their road. And when the tree will look behind me know say me have two people, Rattigan have two, Ishmael have two. So hear what? We continue to speak and we continue to apply the pressure. because it will only be from the people who this change is going to come from. Constitutional reform that makes Jamaica futuristic. That is not a patchwork like a road patch. Every time there's a hole, you patch it up and move on. We don't want a patchwork constitution. We want a constitution at 1960 to be something where we look in the future and it speaks to things that we could never dream of. The same thing that happened with the South African Constitution. When the South African Constitution came into play, many people were like, "Are you kidding me? They have made non-discrimination a right? What? Nobody else is, nobody have that. Whether it's religion, and remember, for them, political discrimination was what defined South Africa. And they had a constitution that dealt with it and looked beyond the issues of race. I think we need to, as a people, have a little conversation them. I look forward to joining them on the shop side. Right there's a night bar. Me may not drink all like white rum still because me not really so up there. But there are a few things I will participate in drinking, and we can have a conversation. But that's what we're gonna need to do. We're gonna need to have it from the people. Change always comes from the people. You cannot wait for people who benefit from the corruption and the power to make change.
I'm so happy you said that because just last week, and I'm not sure if people follow international media, there was this uproar in Kenya about a bill that they tabled, a new tax bill, and it was young people who led that
Financial bill.
right
That uprising.
that uprising.
Yes,
Thank
call
you.
it.
And
Yes.
what I find, and I did say it here, what I find is that most, and I won't say recently, but most of our issues in relation to constitutional reform are now being politicized, and they're used to score points from whatever leader that we have. And it is very unfortunate because I say that off the background that some of these things, especially having to do with people, whether on the rock or off, um, they want it to be, you know, inadmissible or reversible, if that's the proper term to use. Um, so I'd want to know, how can we, as a people, not necessarily do what the Kenyans did, but how can we, you know, um, force our leaders per se to call back that document, because
Why
as far as
why
we're
why
concerned, it's not ready.
Ishmael? Why you
Hmm.
rule that out? Why you rule that out? The direct
What
action of
rule
the
out?
Kenyan people. Why you rule it out? Say
No,
to
no,
South
no,
Africa.
no, man. I'm not ruling it out, but that's a last resort as far as I'm concerned,
Well,
because you know.
you know, what the Kenyans did reminds me of the gas riots. I'm
Mm,
old enough to remember the gas riots. So it's not impossible. But I'll tell you something that I learned this week. Just say Sunday, so it would have been Thursday, Friday. When the speaker made that ruling, that infamous ruling, that the annual integrity reports would be sent to a parliamentary committee for review before being tabled in, that was one of the first times I thought to myself, are you kidding me? Like the shock. I was in awe. I was flabbergasted that you would want to do something like this, which to my mind meant that there was a covering on transparency, there was a foil on accountability, and somewhere along the line, you were doing this deliberately because it was serving the interest of parliamentarians. And people never stopped talking about it. This was something that everybody questioned, whether they said it was right. People said, but the Attorney General said, I remember um, the Justice Minister came out and said there was ambiguity.
hmm
And people were like, no, but if you're hiding, what you want to hide? This is in the space of the statutory declarations of the Prime Minister. And what happened? It took us months. They had the report from the Attorney General for more than 6 months, I think. But it was, if it's not 6 months, it's 6 months or a little bit more. because it was from the last
From the last speaker
speaker
to the
was
new
there
speaker.
to the new speaker, and it wasn't something that was dealt with when the new speaker came in. So we were fighting over something where they already knew. They already knew. The people in the Attorney General chambers already knew that they had given them the advice and the decision was still made. And the people didn't stop talking. Goodwill in civil society organizations ramped up and still spoke about it. And on Thursday, a third statement came from Parliament to say they will be tabled. That's evidence of people power. That's evidence of people. They may not like it, but that's evidence of people power. So we keep the platforms growing. I think now social media bloggers understand that if you're a friend for the purpose of advancing a political party, you must now make sure that you are a friend to the people themselves, because you have rights just like anybody else, and it can threaten you. And so we use this power of social media and we get people out to talk about it. I don't think people understand that even though you're on social media, there are still many people who really don't use social media. How you reach them? So when I was asked about Waterhouse Vibes, I would know. How would I know about Waterhouse Vibes? And it's not in this space, and that's not where I read. I'm not on social media, so it wouldn't pop up because of the algorithm or something that I'd be interested in. And there are genuinely people like me. I watch it or listen to it because of work, but there are genuine people who they it not reach them yet. Those are the people that we need to figure out how to reach. And those are the
With that,
people who don't understand the Constitution most.
with that, I want to bring Mr. Ratigan into the conversation. Ratty, you heard the
What's up?
sister. You heard the sister. You hear the passion in her voice, and you're very serious about integrity and corruption in Jamaica. According to you, you want to put people in jail. That's what you want. You're about putting people in jail. What is missing, Ratigan? What is missing from the work of
I
this
think,
agency and the forces in Jamaica? What is really missing?
well, first of all, let me say good evening to the panel. Daniel, big up yourself, Patrick, Ishmael, Lass, and of course, the host with the most, Miss Anita. Big up all of the people in the chat and all the people who watch and observe. Um, what is missing? We're on a trajectory that is historic, that is monumental, that's epic. Jamaica has never seen this kind of backlash against any government as they're seeing now in the media, social media, essentially. Because people have said that traditional media has been bought out by the government. But be that as it may, we still have a voice. We have a very powerful voice. And Daniel just asked a question: how do you reach them? Because she said she's not the algorithms wouldn't take her to Waterhouse Vibes and so on and so forth. Well, we are One Jamaica Legal Defense Foundation. We're doing this through social media and by word of mouth. We're encouraging people that, look, if you watch it and you like what you say, then share it with a neighbor, a friend, a relative. And by doing that, we're seeing a growth that's exponential. And we're happy for that. Because at the end of the day, it's about people. For us, it's not about politics or party. It's about policies and people. Um, Daniel mentioned, she said, well, why would anyone get involved against their best interest? And that's true. That's true. Yesterday we had on Mr. Lloyd Diston from um, the CMOC. That's the Oversight Committee on Police Transformation, um, the justice space, as well as corrections. And we asked him a question because he said that they were formed in 2020, and to date they have only accomplished 45% of the benchmarks. And you couple that with the fact that the person who should be co-spearheading this, the Minister of National Security, he stopped going to the meetings after the elections, and he said in the media that he thought that the purpose of the consensus monitoring on crime for for the election, and so he didn't attend. He was I'm not sure if he didn't know or him just pretend like he never know. I don't know, but he hasn't been attending the meeting. So I asked him, given all of this, um, what's the biggest frustration for you? What's the biggest disappointment? I know what he said. The failure of the government to embrace this initiative. He said it openly. The failure of the government. Now, remember, this is a crime fighting initiative, you know. And remember, this government said, look, you're going to sleep with your windows and your doors open. And you dare not do that. And then just what, 2 weeks ago? Or last, yeah, no, 2 weeks, week and a half ago, we had the Mr. Fitz Bailey from the JCF went on a platform in front of Diaspora members and assured them that Jamaica is a very, very safe
Yeah.
place. I think, yeah, him say you can come home. Tell a lady, ask him, I said, look, my mother, our grandmother would like to come home, but because of the crime and the violence and blah blah blah. And essentially he said, no, that's propaganda. Crime is declining. You don't have to worry about that. Whenever you hear about murders or so, it's usually between people who know each other and it's gang members and whatnot. So tell your grandmother and mother, tell her come home, man. And all of them must come back home because everything safe and so on. We know that's not true.
He
That's
said
not
that for real?
Yes. I'll
Daniel looks
send you. You
shocked.
know what, Daniel? I'll send you the clip. In
Daniel
fact,
looks shocked.
I'll send you the clip now.
Hmm.
I'll
You'd
send
be
you the clip
amazed what
now.
some of these people would say, man.
But that statement is ambiguous to begin with. Because if he's saying that there's no crime, and at the same time he's saying that when you hear these news of crime occurring, it's between people who know each other. That's still crime.
But
Mhm.
but we also have
But it's ambiguous to begin with. You know, it's just a political ploy to dismiss,
okay.
what's really going on. So it's not a real serious argument.
Okay.
Let me hear what you have to say, Daniel. I'd love to hear you. You know what I'm going to say? Don't bite your lip, man. Talk, man.
You see, when you talk about crime, I live in Mandeville, and just yesterday we woke up and the house next door was broken into, and
Oh,
we were waiting and
what
waiting
no crime
and
that?
waiting.
What
Well,
no
no,
crime
man,
that?
let me try to say to you. Well, in Mandeville, so let me disclose. In Mandeville, most people appreciate that Mandeville is where they say a lot of returning residents go. Unfortunately, it was a returning residents' home that they broke into. And we were waiting and we were waiting, and it took them about 8 hours before the police actually came. Now, when as a returning resident, and I sigh because I don't want to give the wrong impression. I don't want to say don't come home, but come home and have your wits about you. Come home and recognize that their crime is not just the killing between gangs. The crime is what happens because corruption exists. Crime is a lack of opportunities for young people. Crime is a reduced lifestyle for people. Crime is a lack of education. Corruption involves and results in people not having the kind of education that they should, that makes them susceptible to crime. When I speak from the point and the focus that corruption facilitates all these things. So when you tell me that it's just gang, that's one part of it. The other part of it is that there is the crime of robbery, there is the crime of burglary. These are some of the things that make people nervous in saying that they're going to return home. And this is why I say it is not just a conversation to be had about telling people that we want your remittances and come home because we want the people to build up our numbers, but a holistic approach to crime must include combating corruption, not just giving it lip service. Look at the amount of money that goes missing every year, whether it's in health or in
Never
education,
want to
and
say
ask
it enough.
yourself whether or not that could not have improved the quality of education that we have. Have
Isn't
we
that a
asked
crime?
ourselves when we talk about the communities that we have? And yet, on one hand, you talk about having PEP exams and allowing people to go to their first choices, but at the same time, there are some schools that get more support and more contributions than others that allow them to do
Interventions.
much better than the others. Look here, let me behave myself.
You know what?
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
what?
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
You know what,
so
It's true.
Daniel?
sorry.
It's true.
To
It's
my
true.
Let
The
me
mind,
thing
just
was,
add one quick piece to it. One
It's
of the
true.
things that Mr. Diston said yesterday, because they've been working on this thing, as I said, since 2020. He said corruption. There's a piece of legislation, and he said the government has no appetite to put that through. None. And he had said, this is the consensus monitoring on crime is an initiative that only criminals would be against. And I said to him, it's funny because, some of the same people that you sit with are people from those groups like PSOJ. They're criminals. We know this for a fact. We know this. We in the diaspora, we know this. We have the evidence that some of these people are crooks. And the mafia admit, say, well, yeah, you're right. Some of the same people who sit on the table with us, they're crooks, and they're not interested in passing any kind of corruption legislation. So, as going back to Daniel's point, why you think they would get involved in doing something like this if it's against their interests? They won't.
I think it's funny you said that. I think it's a perception of what crime is. If it's blatant, then it's a crime. But if it's covert or what people call white collar, we shouldn't look at it as a crime sort of thing. So just to
you
piggyback
see,
off what Daniel
that's
said,
why
it
we
is
don't have
true.
a bribery
It's
act. That's why
yeah,
we don't have a bribery
exactly.
act, because
So
most of
so
us will, and I say most of us because NIA did a study that said a majority of Jamaicans have accepted that corruption is just a way of life.
yeah, the simple things. Cutting you're in traffic and the light turn amber and it go on red and you just fly through the red light same way. And the police stop you and you give him $1,000. Is that
Look here,
it might be a misdemeanor, but it's still a crime. Sort of
and it
thing.
still affects your quality of living, because if
Of
you're gonna
course.
come home, let us be real and let us face it. When you come back home, and this is why I said this conversation of corruption, it is something that we have to appreciate. It's like an octopus. It has tentacles. Yes. So
Let
we
me,
talk about coming home. Look at our healthcare system. We don't have the
God.
adequate healthcare to take care of you. We talk about education. When you come home, you want your family come with you too. You might have a grandchild, like you say, no man can't lie, Our education, when you get a Jamaican education, it up this, it on par. But you have to
Mhm.
struggle to get that kind of education. So when we talk about it, I just want us to have that appreciation that whatever it is that we choose to do to make Jamaica a better place, one of the first places we have to start is how are we fighting corruption? If our own politicians are unwilling, reluctant, refuse to embrace impeachment legislation because they know that that legislation is going
About
to be
them.
what people can use to say that you lack integrity, you have the smell or aura of corruption, so you don't belong in our parliament. They don't want it. They don't want to have a code of conduct either. They want to reign with impunity, that they can make an order. As one minister said, when a minister makes an order, it's not a request.
Which minister said that?
It in a
Crazy.
paper. Me did see it myself. You can read it under the headline where they talk about the ride share.
Oh.
Oh, okay. So me did read it. Me did cut out the paper just in case somebody tell me say it never did
How,
happen.
how about the other one, the one where the minister said that the speaker's decision may not be right, but it's final.
And that is because they operate like they think that it is a parliamentary democracy. So if the leaders and this is something that we have to have that conversation about, if our leaders are not setting the example when it comes to bribery, nepotism, and corruption, and we say
Basically,
it's
system.
okay because guess what? Their reputations are more important than yours. I have said it before and I'll say it again. Their reputations are more important than the rest of us.
I've,
And we
I've a
have to
question.
decide whether or not that is true or should not be so.
Then I have a question for the entire panel.
Hmm.
How do you fight corruption? It's a very simple question. How do you fight corruption in Jamaica?
I, I, I don't know. I really don't. I don't know where to start from the head, from them.
No,
I can tell you how we fight
it,
corruption.
it, it's, it starts with it starts with transparency. If the things that the politicians are doing, we can't we can't see, we can't investigate, and we can't ask questions and comment on.
I think transparency.
There's nothing else that there's nothing else we can actu- actually put into place to control them. Even if there are laws to say, okay, if somebody does this, this is the repercussion. Without the transparency part of it, we'll never know what they're doing right or wrong. And I think the whole question of trying to shut up people, to try and stop people from investigating, to try and stop people from talking and asking questions is part of the whole strategy, right? When the prime minister comes out and tells you that he is tracking what you are doing and what you are saying, that's part of the whole strategy to control transparency and control people asking questions and talking about things that are important to them, right? So without that transparency part of it, which the government is trying to shut down, we'll never be able to fight corruption. And one other thing I'd like to say is that, I mean, Daniel can say some things, and probably the government or the politicians might, you know, not take too, might not be too harsh about it. But when people like us in the diaspora say things, it seems like it is twice as bad and twice as harmful, because we are not only talking against the politician. In their minds, we are hurting brand Jamaica, right? And we are bullying people inside Jamaica, and we don't live there, right? So those are problems which affect the whole question of transparency in Jamaica, because people in Jamaica are afraid because of the whole question of victimization, right? And they're within direct contact of these politicians who can victimize them, right? We who are outside of the country and able to talk with more authority and more freedom, right? They're trying to chop us down by trying to say that we are outside and we are dissidents and we hate Jamaica and people should not listen to us.
Agreed.
I think, can I say something here? To answer Ratigan's question, Ratigan, I think we have to lock up all of them. To fight corruption, we have to lock up all of them, PMP and GLP. Okay? It's funny that we identify the problem and they're going to track us down and what have you. But at the same time, they are telling us that we have a crime problem and it's going to take all of us to work on the crime problem. You understand? We come together just around the crime problem. But we have to focus on Holness. To deal with crime and corruption in Jamaica, we have to focus on Holness. And I think Holness is scared. What is he scared of? I think he's scared of Mr. Rattigan. It's the first time that these guys have an ex-FBI agent standing up and pointing out the dirty ways of these individuals. And they know that.
Them afraid of Daniel too, man. Afraid of Daniel.
They're not afraid of Daniel, no. They're not afraid of Daniel.
They're afraid of Daniel, man. What?
No, they're not afraid of Daniel because they're Jamaicans, they're Mandeville.
That's
They
right.
know that
The power that Mr. Rattigan holds, I don't have the power there.
if they touch
Them
Mr. Rattigan,
they wouldn't need to go up on social media to find me, brother.
no,
He's not very far.
No, seriously.
Can I respond to the question seriously?
No, let me finish what I'm saying, bro. I think that Mr. Rattigan drive fear up these guys. They're scared because they know that Mr. Radigan is not a 9-day wonder and just come and then gone again. That is what driving fear in them. You know, it's not that we're saying this, but it's who is saying what. They could easily dismiss us a couple years ago, but now the ex FBI supervisor agents, they have to talk with him. They don't like that. They don't like that.
Um,
So to fight crime, we have to focus on Mr. Holness and empower Mr. Rattigan more. Go
one of
ahead.
the things I wanted to, because you asked that question, and as you said to Mr. Patrick to answer it seriously, I have been toying with whether or not, Mr. Rattigan, we should promote and ask for a court that's designated to fight corruption. And my argument is this: we have courts that are focused on the gun court, and we have a court that is focused on family matters to expedite the matters through the court, because we understand that these things are matters that are time sensitive. When we have matters of corruption or that involve corruption, they take forever to be determined because they go through the regular system. And it gives advantages to both sides because they know that by the time a decision is made, if you don't die, as in the case of Mr. Hibbert, then the persons or witnesses will pass, or the political climate may change, and so they may be able to change the sails of the prosecution. To my mind, a court that is designated as a corruption court would deal with issues such as against rural read and others, and it would be dealt with within a time that is in real time. It gives it effect. And there are other courts, other jurisdictions that are looking at using a corruption court to emphasize how important it is that they see corruption. So you ask a question, and I'm wondering whether or not it's high time that we consider having a court that's dedicated to the prosecuting and dealing with these matters so that they can be dealt with in quick time. It'd be good to hear your views on that.
Let me just let me just say that the question was, oh, Patrick, you never answer. My ear,
Yeah. Well, first of all, I wanted to say that there's two ways I can approach that answering that question. Right? One is that we cannot fight corruption because we can't fight something we don't understand fully. And my other answer is in terms of how we really do it. Right? I don't know if we have the time for that because that's the long answer. Right? And the synopsis of it is that we have to go to the root of everything. We have to change the Constitution. Not reform. Change the Constitution. The Constitution is our guardrail. Right? And when we have a Constitution that is not authentic, right, it lacks the integrity and the responsibility, right, it's of no use to us. And that's what the Jamaican Constitution is. It is of no use to us. It is a continuation of the old colonial system. There's a new Constitution that's needed, and we can slice and dice as much as we want in terms of coming up with patchwork solutions, new court, whatever we want to talk about, right? That's not gonna solve it. It's like you said, Daniel, if a bribery law doesn't exist, right? But there's something in the Constitution that addresses stuff that can lead to bribery, then there's your answer, right? We have to look at a Constitution that actually deals with our situation, right? What happens is that when we look at government, for example, in Jamaica, we have this idea that politicians are leaders. Politicians are not leaders. Politicians cannot be leaders, right? Politicians are elected to do a job. We are the ones who give the politician the job, right? We have to understand what it is we are giving these politicians the responsibility to do, right? And the accountability, where that falls, right? You can't give somebody a job and the person who you give the job has no responsibility to you and has no accountability to you. It can't work like that. And that's what leads to corruption. Right? So it's quite a process to change. We're talking about
Uh,
entering into a system of independence, which a lot of people don't even understand what independence is. Independence means self-determination, right? And for the most part, we don't understand that. Most of us have no idea what that means. So there's a
I
lot
take,
Ishmael,
I take,
to the question.
I take the point, and I do accept and agree that we do need to have a conversation about what is corruption and the many layers of corruption so that people understand it. It does make sense to me. Looking at it in a progressive line, though, to say these are the options and the steps that we put forward, in addition to an impeachment legislation and a recall legislation for members of parliament in the constitution. Basic things such as a bribery act, I think, is a foundation piece. It is said that laws are used to change society or to get the behavior that you want from individuals in a society. And to my mind, even before you get to the constitution, we can do simple things. We've done with alacrity legislation that goes through parliament to make sure that it's on time. We can have a bribery act. If we have a bribery act, and we do an educational campaign that is twinned with the bribery act, as should have been done with the road traffic act, so that people understand what are the things that can be prosecuted, what does this mean, why is bribery part of corruption, why is nepotism seen as an aspect of corruption, and people will come on board and people understand. Our greatest problem in many areas is that most of us don't understand what corruption is and the many areas that it thrives. And so I do think that a public education campaign, and of course having a bribery act to handle the culture in our society, is one way to deal with it. But I'm also focused on the fact that we do have a corruption prevention act, and when people are prosecuted under the act or charged under that act, it takes forever and a day and 6 years before you ever hear anything coming from it. So I'm thinking that whilst we do the bribery act, there are low hanging fruits that can be reached. If the government is serious about corruption as they say they are, then a bribery act is one way. A recall to make sure that prime ministers and members of parliament are accountable is something that they can do without much fanfare. And even if that is on one hand, having a court, a judge, how many corruption cases do we have? Can't we have a judge that sits and deals with all these corruption matters, set a timeline and a time frame, and deal with it in such a way that the people have confidence that we really are serious about corruption? Those are some of the things I think. It's not a sprint. Going into the Olympics, it's not a sprint. To my mind, it's a marathon, and it means that we have a different leg and different things to do as we do that journey. But I don't think it is something that is impossible. I think every Jamaican is affected by corruption in our inability to utilize our hospitals, in the poor educational experiences that we have, in the stage of our roads right now. I don't know. I'm gonna have to cut out shortly because I do have to attend the graduation. But when I think of Miss Beryl coming, I'm there. I'm concerned. Are we ready? Are we prepared? What do these new developments have in wake for how the roads will be flooded? What does it mean for Jamaica? Can we respond? I mean, it sounds petty, it sounds simple, but corruption affects all of these things, because at the end of the day, when somebody is going to suffer, I mean, telling them that they can get $10,000 or $20,000, and then you might have a minister who tells you that you're not going to get it because you never did vote, or you never did vote for the particular party. I mean, the social system and the social caliber that we have is severely affected, I believe, by corruption. Whether it is how we control the news, or what news we control, or who gets out the news, or what is said, the whole thing reeks as something that we do need to have a Ratigan approach, a laser-sized approach, an approach that says that we're all in this together. And on my part, to all the persons who live outside of Jamaica and still have Jamaica as their home, to many persons who are contributing to Jamaica, whether it is not just by remittances, but by the encouraging words that you send, the appreciation that you still think that Jamaica is a place that you somehow want to be a part of. Thank you. Because the truth is, we have to carve a place that makes you feel that you belong, that you have never left. and that you can still contribute, not just by being part of a platform, but you really feel that you're really here. And it's not just to lock up a house and you can't say you can't keep the house locked too long because nobody not there. I mean, there's so many things that we could talk about. But on my part, kudos to the diaspora. I appreciate the work that you're doing. To me, you are worth much more than remittances and investments. And I think we need to find a way that we can do this circular contribution where you can make a contribution to Jamaica and how it is for the future. This is not about us. It's about our children, our children's children, or our nieces and nephews, our family, who we want to leave a legacy for. It's not any one person's legacy. It's a legacy for all. And I'm grateful that you continue to look out for Jamaica by
I
fighting
Let me
have
hard.
just
one question.
let me just add something,
Daniel,
Anita.
Sure.
Let me just let, let me just say that when people call you dissidents, treasonous, traitor, breakaway group, you know you make progress. You know you get under them skin. Those are the
yeah,
terms that have
yeah.
been used. Those are the terms that have been used to describe our segment of the diaspora. Now, the question was, how do you fight corruption in Jamaica? It is my considered opinion that you can't, because you're back to square one. You're asking the people who are responsible for this act to pass a piece of legislation that will actually punish their behavior. And even when it's done, we know that they won't be punished. Just take a look at the prison population and look if it's certain people inside here. You won't, even though the laws are written for all Jamaicans, and we know people commit crimes from every strata of society. But if you look inside here, you won't see certain people.
Ratigan,
Now, that's why I said,
Ratigan, hold, Ratigan, hold on a minute. Daniel has to leave, you see, and Daniel, thank you very much, and I hope to see you. You're going to return back to this platform. So when you're ready, you can. Thank you, my sister. Thank you
I am
very
at the
much.
service. I'm at the liberty, the pleasure, and the mercy of Mr. Douglas. So I am sure he will reach out to me and let me know.
I just
When
wanted to say this before you leave, Daniel.
All
I just
right.
wanted to say this
You
that
think she
you.
easy?
I just wanted to say this before you depart, that my reason for saying that, it's patently observable that in Jamaica you can pass all the laws you want. You're not going to shake or break corruption. Here is what
Exactly.
we think the best way we think that you approach a problem. You're going to need outside help. Even with the court, even if you set up a corruption court, you're going to need outside help. And that's why we have started our discussions with the US Congress already in terms of the Magnitsky Act. And that act punishes uh, uh, human rights abuse, corruption, and kleptocracy, which all three of them are going on in Jamaica right now. Plus, you have the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, plus, you have the Foreign Extortion Prevention Act, and you have a whole bunch of other acts. So, we are going to and we're also engaged in discussions with donor agencies and donor countries to say the money that you've been given to Jamaica, there is no proper accounting for it, because the money come in for a certain purpose, and it's not being used to benefit the whatever the group is that you've identified. For example, Jamaica received over $700 million US during COVID from World Bank, IDB, and IMF. And the money went to Jamaica for two communities: the business community and the poor people, at-risk communities. And you know what they did for the poor people? Them say, well, you have to have internet, you have to have online banking, you have to have this, you have to have that. How many my family in a St. Anne and in a St. Elizabeth, them not have access to them things there. And the question then is, where did that money go? Up to now, we haven't received any answers. But the sad part about it, Daniel, and the rest of the panel, our people will have to pay back that loan,
correct,
Listen,
including
man.
people who the money
correct.
was destined for them. They didn't get it, and then they're going to have to turn on and pay it back.
Ratting
Yeah.
up
That
start up made with that now,
that
man.
is
Come and pay
evil.
tax in a brother.
Exactly. So that is why we're saying that, look, we're doing our whatever we can do over here to shed international focus on the problem. And one of the things that an American politician cares about, regardless of the political affiliation, taxpayers' funds. If you go to him and say, taxpayers' money is going to Jamaica.
Ratty,
Yes, sir.
I think we need to release Daniel.
Okay.
Thanks. It's so
I
true,
think we
and
need
I
to release
accept what you
Daniel.
said, Mr. Rattigan, and I appreciate it.
Thanks.
But like I said, it's all has to be done together, and I do agree with what you're saying. Thanks again for the invitation, Mr. Douglas. I look out to more invitations from you.
Thanks for
Sure.
being here.
Thank you so much for being here,
Blessings
Daniel.
to you all.
Take
That
care.
is
Take care, Mom.
All right.
Da-
Bye bye.
Daniel,
Yes, sir.
Daniel,
Yes, sir.
you need
Want me to
to
know?
you need to interact with Mr. Rattigan.
I need to
Daniel-
interact with Mr. Rattigan.
Daniel was supposed to come up on the program, and Daniel just blew me off.
No,
What a scandal!
no.
Have it, Daniel.
What a scandal! I blew you off.
All right.
Well,
Let's move.
Help!
Let's move along. Let's
Daniel,
move along. You
Daniel,
keep
how
it
is-
to
no problem. No problem.
All right.
both. No,
Yeah,
There's,
man.
both
there's always this Saturday. There's always
No,
this Saturday, Daniel. There's always this
No,
Saturday.
All right.
Okay.
Very
I
much.
see.
Share me up and pressure me. Yes, Mr. Rattigan, Saturday.
I mean, at the same
No,
thing do with the government, so
Yeah.
no better.
Been a special. All right.
All right.
So bye-bye.
Yeah,
All
man.
right. Yeah, Rattigan, you were saying fighting corruption.
Yeah,
going
you
to
can't
outside
fight-
force.
Yeah, you cannot expect the people who commit corruption for going there and say, okay, we're going to fight. They'll say it,
Pass laws.
and they have said it. And you know what? Them said every single throne speech. Go back and look at all of the throne speeches made by the Governor General at the
But
opening
yeah-
of Parliament.
But here's the thing, Ratty.
You're the problem.
Again, as I said earlier on, you can fight corruption, but you can put the necessary infrastructure in place to prevent it. That is what you do. You don't fight corruption. Because this is what, when you talk about fighting corruption, this is when you talk about setting up courts and making laws and all of this stuff. And when it comes down to the trial, when you prosecute and come down to the trial now, right, then the trial is long and drawn out, right, and it end up in a stalemate, right, because corruption, to begin with, does not leave possibilities. It's when they get careless about it, that's where you catch them.
Hear my view, Patrick and the rest of the panel. My view is that you fight corruption with giving more power to the people. You fight corruption with more participation from the people. Corruption exists in most cases where the people have no ability to see what is happening and to participate in what is happening. And with the more democratization of community institutions and the setting up of organizations within the community that give the ordinary citizens power. For example, you have a parish council division, and a parish councillor have the ability to distribute funds, to give contracts to people, but the ordinary citizens inside that area, inside that political division, one, they have no say whatsoever in what the councillor does. The councillor pretty much does what he wants to do, right? Even if that councillor reports to a constituency, a MP or whatever, a parish council. I mean, the missing link is that the citizens don't have the kind of participation in the process, right? To halt if they see something going wrong. They can't do anything about it because they don't have that kind of power. So the democratization of community organizations, right, and government organizations is part of the problem. It's not the only thing that's needed, but it's part of the problem. It's part of the solution to solving the whole idea of corruption in government.
Yeah. So quickly, I want to thank Maria's Products and Elaine Turner for their contribution. It didn't go unnoticed, and thank you to you know contribute towards our fight for a better Jamaica and diaspora. Just to piggyback off what Lass was saying, um, I think the best way for us to go forward now is, you know, um, I, I don't want to steal Ratty's words, but we have to show them up. We have to show them up. We have to continue showing them up because the truth is, they will not stop until they see that we are serious. They will not stop because if it is that we are doing something correct and we are being called treasonous, like my friend Rattigan, and we are being called because I was them draw me up what they are too, but I'm not gonna make it know. You want them draw me up what they are wicked man. Um, so these things means that
Oh, you not for tell me. You not for tell me. Just oh.
you want them draw me up wicked what they are,
Oh,
man.
oh.
Eh,
Not tell me
People,
what them said, but just tell me who dry you up.
eh, a certain minister. A certain minister. I mean, I'll tell you after the year. I'm not tell
Okay,
you.
okay,
So,
okay, 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 okay,
right.
okay.
So it means that we're doing something right. And what I found out, what I realize is that whenever you are onto something, whenever you are onto
Ishmael.
something,
Hold on, Ishmael.
hmm
um, Mr. Holness saying track down a youth, you know.
yeah, I know me. I never me. I never me. I never me, man.
You make me start wondering now if I you are
I
the
never me.
if I you are the youth
I
and Mr.
never me.
Holness track down and
I
force you
never me. What you
apologize,
say? They are
Betty.
prison for me, man. They are prison
But,
for me.
gentlemen,
But yeah,
gentlemen,
man. We are in fact on. We are onto something. So them not feel the cool breeze no more. Them a feel the fire at the tail. Most I feel the fire at them tail. So that's what is happening now. Um, but the truth is we can't let up now because this is the first I've ever lived to see so many voices in unison towards a cause. This is the first time. It must mean that we are doing something right and they are in trouble for that. So we can't stop here. So I want to tell everybody continue. All the diaspora members, all the Waterhouse youth them, the general, we can't stop here, so it can't stop. Go ahead, Mikey.
Let me say this though.
before,
Right.
before you say anything, Patrick, what the statement that ONS made about crackdown, crackdown on fake news, I think it's a dangerous move. It's a dangerous move by this man. If he's able to get away with this, then we can kiss bye-bye to our democracy.
Mm.
I think he's serious about it. He's serious. He's serious. He's definitely going to use the intelligence community
Mm.
with
But
IT and Israel and track down people. You don't think that is
but
serious?
And ironically enough, just before you finish, last, ironically enough, a comment was made by a certain member of the parliament about another member of the parliament and that member's wife. And because of that, um, it is now in front of the courts because of that particular um, um, comment that was made. No, I didn't hear the prime minister come out and make any comment about those awful things that was said about that certain member of the parliament, right? But it goes to show that instead of you cleaning up your house, you find the time to talk about something that a young person said, using his right to free speech about you and your government, and you don't like it. So you are going to do something about it using the government resources when me appear you for. I
The,
think
the,
Ratigan,
the danger
I think somebody
the
needs to
danger about the danger about what that Mikey talk about, is that these guys are using the Interception for of Communication Act, right? I'm breaching the Interception of Communications Act because to track to track somebody in that kind of way, you have to have some kind of direction. You have to apply to the courts to get some kind of warrant authorizing you to track somebody's communication like that. So the danger is that it is showing that this government is willing to break the law, right? To track people and to pursue people who are saying things that is not in keeping with what they believe and what they want to hear, right? Because to come on a platform and say some youth says something that borders, remember his words, he doesn't say this person break any law and that they have a warrant from the court to intercept whatever. He says that this person says something that borders, right, on defamation or something like that, right? So, I
but
mean,
last, last,
it's
last,
dangerous.
last. We know these
Yeah.
guys. We know these guys. So don't believe what he's saying. That somebody, those are just story him just make up, about
No
you.
man, it's
Yes, but
true. It's true. It's no, it's true. The person had to come on social media and apologize and delete the comment that they made. And it wasn't even a bad comment. It's true. It's true.
Ratigan, you aware of this?
Yeah, it depends on who you listen to because Dr. Donna Morris Dixon, I believe that's her name. Um,
Yeah,
she's the
data
minister
protection.
without portfolio. Yeah, people, and I found this out. There's no information minister in Jamaica. There's no such thing. What you have is a minister without portfolio in the office of the prime minister with a responsibility for
For
information. And I found
information.
this
Yeah,
out
man.
because I filed an ATI and they came back with the answer because Minister Morgan had said at one of his last press briefings that the prime minister was the minister of information. And I guess that got him into more trouble. But she said, no, that's not. She said there is no tracking of people and there's no this, despite what he said. She came afterwards and she said, no, they're not doing that. But we know that it's going on. We
So
know the
who if you
prime.
believe then?
Of
What
course, you have
tell
to
lie?
believe the head man. Yeah, of course, I believe. I mean, but
Okay.
here's the thing: they ask you not to believe your lying eyes and not to believe your lying ears. Because I give you a quick example. I got a document from the government saying that they paid $33 million, Jamaican dollars, to represent the DPP at the Privy
Yeah.
Council, the case against Vibes Cartel. They paid 33 million,
I saw
two payments.
it's your program a seat pan first and then I see the media run with it. I kid you not.
Really?
Yeah,
All
man,
right.
it's your program a seat pan first
So
and then
33 million, right? And then here's the thing. And that's not for the full trial now, because I was told by somebody who was at the Privy Council. Them say is more motions were filed that they had to respond to. I asked them 4 questions. Them only give me the answer for 1 question. And here's the sad part about it. Them say night, when I ask them how much money them pay for the DPP and all, them say? Them say because the government was represented by lawyers in England, no Jamaican lawyer went to to that hearing, and therefore them say there is no expense to the government, no per diem, no travel, no nothing. Now, unless the whole of we blind, the whole of everyone of we saw the DPP.
Yeah,
And,
no,
and the
I
court.
wanted to ask you, I wanted to call and ask you,
But hold on.
in the middle of the proceedings.
Hold on, Ishmael.
Mhm.
Ratty,
Hmm.
that argument cannot fly. Right? Because first to begin with, no lawyer works for free, regardless of where him live. Whether him live in England or him live in Jamaica. Right? Because the fact of the matter is that if he's gonna represent at the level of the Court of Appeal, right? There's no way. It doesn't make sense. That's total nonsense.
Well, here's the thing, Patrick. The Jamaican taxpayers and people in the diaspora who pay them taxes down there, right? They paid for the salary of a DPP to represent the crown in these criminal cases, right? Now, it's my understanding that this former DPP served for about 17 years, 16, 17 years, and she never once represented herself. Never once represented the government of Jamaica or the Crown at the Privy Council. And there have been many, many cases argued at the Privy Council. So you know what happened? They're paying her a salary. And what they do is they subcontract out the work in England to lawyers in England. And then she and Jeremy, I think it's Jeremy Taylor, his name is,
Jeremy.
went. Yeah, because we saw them.
Yeah.
And they said, they wrote to me and they said, no Jamaican lawyer went because we had British lawyers representing the interest of Jamaica in this criminal matter. And I say, and therefore, them said them not pay no money. No, unless, well, first of all, no Jamaican lawyers went. That's a lie, because those
But
two
it
are
don't
lawyers.
make sense. It
It
don't
don't
That's
make
why
make
I,
sense.
that's why I
It
wanted
don't
to
make sense.
ask.
Here's why it don't make sense. Let me put it real simple. Right? Let me put it real simple. If I have a case here in Jamaica, right, going to the UK, right, in an appellant process, and I'm not going I'm the lawyer in Jamaica handling the case, and I'm not going personally to handle it in the UK. I'm gonna have a UK lawyer deal with it at the Court of Appeal. I still have to work in conjunction with that lawyer. That lawyer is not in Jamaica. He don't know the case. He don't know anything about it. So I will still have to work in conjunction with him. So of course I'm gonna be on a payroll, and he's gonna be on a payroll as well. It's simple.
But here's the thing.
It's simple.
But here's the thing. They said that no lawyer went, and we have video of the two
Right.
of them being there.
No,
That's why
but,
I want to
no, but
ask.
that is why they put in the argument about the UK lawyer, right? Because no lawyer went, but the lawyer who never went still have to deal with the lawyer who was there.
But she was there.
That's what I'm saying.
was
So
there.
I wanted to raise awareness to. If she never did it, all right, fine. Them say she wasn't there, Ratigan. Take them word for it. So who was
No.
that them say,
No. It
allow me
makes
to
no
finish,
sense.
please, Patrick. Allow me
Makes
to
no
finish.
sense.
So them say she never did it, and you have to just take that. Me wanna
No.
know who everybody see duck under the table with our phone when it did a ring. Me wanna know who we see, because obviously it wasn't. There is this term, doppelganger. You know that term, Will?
No.
All right, so a doppelganger is somebody that looks almost identical as you, but they say you have 7 doppelgangers in the world that looks
Oh,
like
okay.
you.
Mhm.
7 people
Yes.
that really looks like you.
Yeah, people
So,
striking resemblance.
right.
Mhm.
So maybe I want doppelganger in the court with the same privileges as like a DPP, but not one of the Jamaica. Maybe she had a DPP or maybe like Thailand or give me a next black country name. and she just coincidentally did it at the same time. Cause wonder what kind of foolishness that you want come and come tell big people. Like when I no
But
sense.
the fact of the matter is that you don't sit back and entertain speculation. And that's what they're
You know,
asking you to do. Speculate.
you see when you lie, you, you speak stupidness. It's when they just blatantly lie, anything come out of your mouth, you expect people to take it and it can't make sense. Oh, you gotta tell people about no lie and never sit down in there. And the thing was live streamed. That could have fly if it wasn't. It could have fly. It could have fly Ratigan, and then you'd have to do your own investigation. It could have fly.
I
But
for
it
the
can't
longest
fly.
time, for the longest time, I've been saying that the Jamaica Labour Party take the Jamaican people for food. You know, they come and they tell us, and they expect us to accept the lies that they're telling us. You know, it's like it's like they just decide, listen, let us feed the Jamaican people with lies, and that will somehow kind of cool down the temperature. You understand me? And the more they tell the Jamaican people lie, is the more the Jamaican people see what's happening. And
you know,
yeah,
like you know, like
no,
you know, like you know, like a little child. You see
yeah,
them with the cake on their mouth, and you
yeah,
see
and
the piece of cake missing,
and,
and you say, "Oh,
and
eat the
my
cake."
parents say,
I know me, a
I don't
ratigan eat it. A ratigan eat
exactly.
it, and you see the crumbs. So the crumbs are the your mouth. A ratigan lick me with it, and it go in a
Yeah,
piece, go in a mouth. It
that's
don't make
exactly. You know,
sense.
it's like they take the Jamaican people for fools, lies. You know, they can just come to
It don't
us
make sense,
and
man.
tell us
It
anything.
don't make sense.
And
It
that's
don't make
why
sense.
that is why I think they want to shut down the social media. You know, they want to shut it down, but I don't know how they're going to do that. That's another lie they tell. There's
Mhm.
no way they can shut down the social media. No way.
In fact, Mikey, I bring your attention to something that when the transport minister said that he's going to ask the telecommunications
Mhm.
companies to halt the ride sharing apps, they operate off the same the same internet
Network. Yeah.
network that the internet and the social media operates from,
Yeah.
and they told him that that is illegal. They will not do that. So he must have come back to the people and say he might retract the statement and him now but ban anything. So now me want to know how the prime minister, because the cases are similar, I don't want people to forget that. Me want to know how the prime minister go say he might go ban social media, which means that you're going to ban parts of the internet, you know,
I
particular
want to take a bet.
applications
I want to
particular
take a bet.
applications of the internet. So me want to know how you are go, because it is a part of the media networks plan where them get pay final, right?
But
Um or whatever the
If
case
him,
is. You are
if
gonna
him
tell me.
can, you saying if him can ban couple ride share, we go buying thousands of bloggers off of
That's
the internet.
thank you.
no,
If you
I
can't
gentlemen,
agree
ban
with
three
this.
or four ride share app, oh you go
gentlemen,
ban them big
gen-
multi-million dollar.
gentlemen. I'm going to take a bet. Who's that? Yeah,
Stop
no,
it,
see that?
man.
It was me.
Yeah,
I know
yeah,
she
It
that,
was
man.
that is
me.
I
DP,
know she that. It's not
DPP
she.
absurd. But
It's not
I
she.
Remember
want to
that
take a
you can always say it was me.
It's not she. You know, stop it. It's not she.
gentlemen. I want to take a bet. And my bet is this.
Incident.
No. The report that the Integrity Commission is going to table, there's some negative in that report about Holness and his wife. So what
For
he's
this
trying to,
Tuesday?
it's supposed to be sometime this week. What they're trying to do is to distract Jamaican people, talk about the social media and whatever. But there's something in that report that scared them. Why they're coming out ahead of it and say, we're going to crack down. Something in
Yeah.
that report. Because that's the only thing coming up right now. Everybody's waiting for, just like how American waiting for Trump decision for Monday. Most Jamaican right now are waiting on this integrity report. And you see the table it, something is going on that scared the hell out of Holness and his wife. But don't forget, it's not just Holness and his wife. It's a gang of them that sort of capture the state and they want to rob and hide as much as possible. That is what is going on. And I'm surprised that the PNP haven't yet figured it out and start tell them that, listen, we're going to audit everything. Come and take over a government office, we're going to audit, and people going to prison. Because that is what they need to hear. The danger is that well they might destroy the records and can't find it because they're good at that. Yeah? But something in that report that scared the Prime Minister. Okay? If I'm wrong, one such thing will be the first, but I think that is what he's reacting to.
Just to I want to send out another call to the our huge family on Waterhouse Vibes. I want to say to you guys, if just as a continuation from this week, I remember last week I had said if you guys go over
No, it's
350
the week
the week
before that.
before, right?
Yeah.
350,
Yeah.
I would take a constitutional expert, which I did. Daniel is in fact a constitutional expert. No, just to piggyback off that, I'm going to say if I see 100 likes this week, I will bring somebody next week to continue the discussion, but to take it a little bit further for you to know about how the money is spent in our country and how it is accounted for. And that will be very interesting because that person is the only person um, of that type in Jamaica doing that kind of work in terms of holding government and the opposition accountable as it relates to our money. And that's very important. Even the diaspora, because they do work. They even have a website. I won't tell you until me see 100. So if it reach 100 likes, oh, somebody say I should say 300, but me not gonna be overzealous. So if it reach 100, because it's at 28 now. So if we reach 100 before we leave here, I'll bring her next week.
Well, they heard you, so I hope they're going to start sharing some likes. Mr. Radigan, how do you read the Holness statement? How do you read it? Is this something we should be worried about?
Nah, I really wouldn't worry about it because it's not gonna come to fruition. Him just say that, and
Oh,
you
300
know,
for true.
mouth make for talk. That how think about it logically now. How are you going to stop? Because remember now, the government can't them not regulate social media unless them going shut it down. And there are some countries I know of where them shut it down completely, where certain platforms
Yeah.
are banned. No, unless them going to Jamaica, how I'm going to regulate it? No, I do know from a personal conversation I had with him, I do know that he's exposed to certain techniques and technology. I won't go beyond that, but I know that he's exposed to it. there have been rumors, there have been innuendos. Can't confirm them as being facts that some of the technology that he and I spoke about, that some of those technology, they're in Jamaica. But we'll just leave it at that. So and he said it that they have the technical capability to track people and all that stuff. The question I have is, look, Jamaica have a top 200. Everybody have a cell phone in Jamaica, right? You can get cell phone number if you work hand in glove with the telecommunications companies. How is it them can't track down them people there? You can track down, and you notice there's a trend here, you know. There's a trend here. Whenever you make a negative comment about the government, particularly the prime minister, them fine you. But you can't kill 100 poor people, and all them can do is put you on the top 200 list. Then can't find you. Jamaica so small. This all long them take sometimes to find some of them money years. But them, if you ever dare mention something bad about the prime minister or the government, but particularly the prime minister, and we've seen evidence of this, them take you from, you could have hidden in your chimney under your bed. They might take you out of the chimney and take you from under the bed.
Ratty, I have a question to ask you. I think you can answer, but I'll ask the whole panel. What kind of, let me whisper, because I don't want nobody here. What kind of software that they might use? To find them
what kind of software they might use? Somebody put it in the chat.
Yeah.
Them cooperated Israel. Some Israeli technology, man.
Yeah, he spent some time. From what I gather, there is some agreement with the Israelis. The Israelis are active in Jamaica. They're building a surveillance system, from what I gather. You know? But
let me just add a little piece to it, right? Let me just whet people's appetite. And this is based on a personal conversation I had with the Prime Minister. This is not when nobody tell me, so the Prime Minister said. This came out of the Prime Minister's mouth to me.
Ratigan, you sure you want to release that?
What do you mean? We all know that he went to Israel.
Yeah.
Right? He went to Israel.
Yeah.
And he was yeah, they said that. No. And if you notice, he went there and he didn't go with anybody. I don't think he with anybody from the diplomatic corps. He went with businessmen. He went with Mr. What's his name? What's his name was there? Nigel Clark was there. And Michael Lee Chen was there. And how the hell can you go meet a figure like BB, right? A significant figure like BB. And you go and you don't take your diplomatic corps with you. You go with all business people. That trip was driven by solely business, private interests, right? And while he was there, certain things he became exposed to certain things. And it has been rumored that some of those things that he became exposed to, that and I don't know, those things have been in Jamaica for a while. They have been in Jamaica. Some people just catch up now, but those things have been there for quite some time, right? So I'm not surprised when he says things like, we have the capability to track people. That's a revelation. Yeah. And when you hear that, people believe him. I like you said, Ishmael, I just tore it up what the information rep said, just to juxtapose it and compare and contrast. But at the end of the day, you believe what the Prime Minister said when it comes to that. And she was just trying to tidy up everything for him, you know. But it's too late. Him let the puss out of the bag already. Him say, yeah, we have the ability to do it. And you trust me, I won't go any further with the conversation I had with him, except to say, people, believe him. Believe him when him tell us they have the capability to track people in Jamaica. And the capability goes beyond that. Believe him.
Yeah. Oh, but after the trip to Israel in 2017, they actually came out and told us that part of the thing was about security. They never spell out the details about the nature of the security, but you know, I mean, what else? What other kind of security was? Yeah.
Here's the thing, Nas. We must realize, you know, couple things. One is that, you see, whenever, and I learned this during my tenure, right, with my former employer. I learned this. When you hire another government to come in and build your secure or help build a certain segment of your security architecture, a back door is there. A back door is there. So when you are
Always,
collect,
always,
them are collect. It's that
always.
simple. When you are collect, them are collect. And the second point is this: don't ever, the way technology is so readily available and affordable now, don't ever think for a moment that only you alone have it. Don't think that you alone have it, because I've seen some things, and I'm talking recently. I've seen some reports, and on the list note, because Herb spill the beans pretty soon. But I've seen some things were just mind-boggling. The things that people can do right now. You go to the dark web, and there's so many people down there for hire for those all kinds of things, and some things where that I've seen recently, some reporting that I've seen. If we show this to the Jamaican people, it's problem. Big problem. But me leave it at that. Because that's not my bailiwick. So I don't
And
want
on
to
that,
start
Wonder if we
nobody.
can reach 400 before we leave.
and
Because
on that note, we have to bring this discussion to an end. It was very informative, and I hope the listeners learned something. But Jamaica, sometimes you have to wonder if Jamaica is a real place, or is it just a movie? It's to all of that. Here we have a prime minister who should be guiding the people forward, but he want to lock down everything. So Jamaica is not a tough place, but I'm confident that we will overcome. We'll overcome this. People like
yeah, yeah,
Holness, they come and they will too they too shall pass. That's how the way through. They too shall pass. I it won't be long because come next year, I know the
so
People's
all of the
National
dual
Party.
citizens, please, book on a flight and come forward. Please, may I beg you no. Thank you.
Well, that is what needs to start right now. Don't focus so much on Holness, but focus on mobilizing the Jamaican people to go out and vote. We have to vote this party out of house. We have to, or else we're looking at a dictatorship. You understand? So, brethren, thank you all. Last, you wanted to say something? You can go around,
No,
and last
no,
word.
uh, it was just that I just kind of sorry that we didn't have a chance to touch on the Haiti, the developments with the Haiti situation. Sure, because the Kenyans are in some of the Kenyans are in Haiti, part of the multinational force, and the government of Jamaica is saying that their contingent is ready, just waiting on confirmation of certain agreements around resources before the deployment. But probably can touch on it next week. Just
Yeah, we have to. We have to.
everybody keep them heads up on that one.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen. Until next week, just stay firm.
Blessings.
Ishmael, you're going to talk to me. All right.
Yeah, man. I'm going to talk to you. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I also want to thank each and every um person in the chat. You know, all everybody that decided to take the time out and you know be a part of our Sunday matinee, as we call it, from last week. Um, we are all in this together, and I thank you to the contributors. Special big up. Um, we go again next week, Sunday. And because I'm a man of my word, me they want 400, me they want 100, and me say 300, no, me they want 400. But uno win. What those vibes, uno win. So let me let me keep up my end of the bargain.
All right, sir. Ratigan, You hear that?
Yeah,
Ratigan is
just
my weakness too.
no, just me hear it, man. Me hear it. But him keep him promise, you know. Him a promise keeper. Him not stay like some politician.